If someone would have told me way back in January that 12 months from now it will be December already, approaching a new year, I would not have believed them. We're getting another year already? How many installments does this franchise need? Okay, all silliness aside, happy holidays everyone. We are very close to 2026, and normally at the end of the year I do my 5 favorite movies or some kind of ranking video, but there's a couple things that I am missing on my lists. I'm about 6 hours away from seeing Avatar Fire and Ash and 5-ish days away from seeing Marty Supreme. So I'm not quite ready to do my 5 favorite films of 2025. That will come soon enough, I promise, very early January. But it is still the end of the year, so I wanted to do some kind of quick video just to reflect on the kind of insane year that we've had in entertainment. We've had very high highs like Twitter after Sinners or One Battle After Another. We've had extreme low lows where there's one big company buying another big company, or an awful borderline offensive film winning multiple awards. So as we wrap up this borderline unhealthy year that we've had, I want to give you my 2025 winners and losers of movies and TV. First, of course, hello, my name is Kiki. This is my channel Watcher of All Things, where I talk about movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. On my channel, you can find plenty of shorts, a weekly podcast, as well as monthly videos just like this one. Please just take a second to hit like, subscribe, and comment down below your 2025 winners and losers. I feel like it's been a year where decades worth of events have happened all within a 12-month span, so there's plenty of options to choose from. I'd love to hear yours. But now it's time to get into my winners and losers of 2025, and I'm gonna go alternating because I don't want to group all the negativity together, and we'll end on a high with my final winner of the year. But okay, let's do this. Before I give you loser number 5 for the past year, I do want to bring up some honorable mentions who I think are worthy of a shout out. The audiences of a Minecraft movie who trashed their theaters, and the famous people who kind of encouraged them. Why are we trashing public spaces? Why are we ruining a minimum wage worker's shift? What good could come out of that? Like, it's hard enough to see a movie without someone pulling out their phone, but now we're wasting dollars of popcorn. But hey, the celebrities didn't care because at least someone bought a ticket to their movie. Another honorable mention, Chris Evans. I was so excited for him when he was John in Materialists. I thought he's fantastic in that movie, and I thought, wow, maybe this is a huge turnaround for his career. Last year I was super hard on him after Red 1. Like, what is he doing? He's such a talented actor, but he's wasting his time with these kinds of roles. Then this year he gives a knockout performance in what I think was a really good Celine Song film, but immediately is revealed to be returning as Steve Rogers in Avengers Doomsday, wasting years of his career. I don't know what Chris Evans is doing, but he's one of the losers this year, I would say. But okay, as for the actual loser number 5, I am going with Carlos Sofia Gascon, everyone involved in Emilia Perez, and those who voted for the film. Let me paint a picture. We're back in February, which now seems like ages ago. The Oscars are fast approaching. All of the categories are pretty tight. Is Conclave gonna sweep? Is The Brutalist actually going to come out on top? Mikey Madison versus Demi Moore, Adrian Brody versus Timothy Chalamet. So many fun questions. And then looming behind us all like the Grim Reaper is Emilia Perez with 13 nominations. On a macro level, Emilia Perez is actually a terrible representation of the trans experience. The film showcases very dangerous and out-of-touch stereotypes about trans people. And on a micro level, I mean, it's a musical, but the songs are actually terrible. Then outside of the film as its own thing, we have the stars of the movie, one of them being the lead actress Carlos Sofia Gascon, who is terrible in the film, but also had her Twitter history exposed like a month before the Oscars, and oh my god, it got worse every week. And yet there were people that were still supporting the film, including a lot of the cast members who were like, oh well, she was nice to me on set. It sort of felt like there was a worldwide gas leak, and so many people were not taking the things she was tweeting very recently as well seriously. And look, people's dark Twitter history being brought up is not a new thing, but this is actually one of the worst cases that I've seen, and I'm very on board with the canceling. Very strange way to start the year. I'm happy we limited Emilia Perez's Oscar wins, but let's make sure we don't forget the loser behavior of Carlos Sofia Gascon, everyone involved in Emilia Perez, and those who voted for it. Now for some positivity, here's some honorable mentions for the winners of 2025. I'd say James Gunn and everyone involved in Superman, because there was a really fun 2-week stretch where it seemed like everybody was just really hopeful. Next up, I have everyone involved in Andor. I feel like they are not getting enough credit. It's one of the best shows of the decade, maybe the 21st century. I mean, they made something real and moving within the Star Wars universe that has not been done in a very long time. But my first winner of 5 for 2025 is everyone involved with The Pitt. Look, earlier in the year, I made a video about my favorite TV shows of 2025, and I said I'm not a medical TV show fan, but The Pitt had had me hooked from the very first minute. I don't know what they laced this show with. And I've seen a lot of other people online have similar feelings that they grew up hating medical shows, but The Pitt has them addicted. I think it has a lot to do with The Pitt is so intense. Like, I genuinely had to lock in every single time I was going to watch an episode. It felt like I was on call with all of these amazing doctors and nurses. And I'm talking about them like they're heroes. It's a fictional show. It's not real, but I feel like I'm witnessing a miracle every time I watch an episode. I also think The Pitt deserves a lot of kudos because it kind of proved that the week-to-week model is still the best model. I think The Pitt averaged like 10 million viewers per episode, and it was only climbing as the season went on. Word of mouth was doing crazy wonders. I mean, the 15 or so weeks that we had with week-to-week episodes of The Pitt, it was so much fun to be online and hearing other people's interpretations of characters or where they think the story might go. We've really lost that with the binge model. Like right now, we're getting the 3 volumes of Stranger Things or whatever, and you'll be on episode 1, but someone else is on episode 4, so you can't really have that discussion because the other person has so much more knowledge. Whereas The Pitt, we're always at the same point when you're on the week-to-week model, and it's so much fun to theorize and have that universal experience. Also, I mentioned it there, but The Pitt was 15 episodes, not 6 or 8. Are we returning to maybe longer seasons of television? We used to get like 24 seasons hands down, sometimes reaching up to 31, and I really do miss those days. It makes you sit and appreciate television shows a lot more because you're not finishing it all in one sitting. So I don't know, maybe The Pitt is kind of the first step back into the golden generation of television, or we're kind of refining away from the binge model. But everyone involved in The Pitt is a huge winner in my eyes. I mean, it's just such a fun, intense, heartfelt, creative show that's taking kind of a stale genre as well as older school methods of TV show presentation and refining it for our time after like 10 years of this weird Netflix binge model. For loser number 2, we go back to March, where Snow White, more specifically Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, were the talk of the town. The movie crashes and burns at the global box office, and all of a sudden the tabloids and Gal Gadot herself turn on Rachel Zegler. So loser number 2 of 2025 rightfully goes to Gal Gadot. Look, before I get started on Gal Gadot, Snow White was always going to be in trouble. Like, this movie was never going to be well received. It was riddled with controversy and bombarded with hatred the moment they cast Rachel Zegler. I feel awful for her because she is genuinely so talented. I loved her in West Side Story, the Hunger Games movie, and she's good in Snow White. But she got the Little Mermaid Halle Bailey treatment and was just torn apart online. It was really sad to see. Then we had the incident with Peter Dinklage commenting on Snow White's use of real people for the 7 dwarves. So we ended up with the weird CGI 7 dwarves. But okay, Gal Gadot, who is obviously not a very good actress.
I need you to give me the stone. What happened to it?
But she's actually a terrible human being as well. Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot were always going to have issues. I love Rachel Zegler because she is incredibly outspoken and has been for a number of years about what's happening in Gaza and to Palestinians in general. And Gal Gadot, of course, is an Israeli actress who loves Israel and even trained with the IDF. And after Zegler shared the trailer, of course, she did make a comment saying "Free Palestine," and that clearly pissed Gal Gadot off. I kind of loved it. So Gal Gadot was really always the perfect fit to play the evil stepmother, an evil overlord that expels people from their land, imprisons children, and takes over a kingdom. Gotta hand it to the casting department. But it is very interesting to see how unaware Gal Gadot is that she is a terrible actress, and there's definitely some insecurity there.
Kalel, no.
Rachel Zegler's 24, Gal Gadot is 40, and there's definitely some deep-rooted jealousy going on here. And Gal Gadot has accidentally retweeted things hating on Rachel Zegler and has basically rallied Hollywood and everyone that's pro-Israel against Rachel Zegler. Once again, Hollywood wants you to think this young star is a diva, an issue, a brat, when they're just doing their thing, refining their craft, and calling attention to issues that are happening in the world. And there's been countless interviews where it really feels like Gal Gadot is hinting at the fact that the movie didn't do well all because of Rachel Zegler, because she was outspoken about what's happening in Gaza. So all these goons that are behind Gal Gadot and Gal Gadot herself, you guys is our loser number 2 of 2025. All right, for winner number 2, I am going with a director who's kind of breaking the molds of Hollywood while creating new possibilities for the next generation. I'm talking about Ryan Coogler. Sinners was not one of my favorite movies of the year, but it felt incredibly old school and it was just so much fun to be a part of the culture. It felt like Coogler is really making film fun again by blending genres and giving us something epic to all behold. There hadn't really been a lot of great movies in 2025 up to Sinners, so it was kind of the first big moment of the year. And I really appreciated how Ryan Coogler seized the moment to make it a special experience for everybody. Not just by giving audiences a very fun time, but by pushing the boundaries within the industry. If you don't know, Ryan Coogler made a deal with Warner Brothers that after 25 years, he actually owns the film himself. That's not a very traditional thing in modern Hollywood, like almost unheard of. He also has first dollar gross, and look, I'm no finance guy, but as I understand it, it means he's earning his money before the studio gets theirs back from the box office. He also had final cut on Sinners, so it is fully his movie, it's fully his vision, and I really love that. It's kind of hard to get that a lot of the time. I mean, Denis Villeneuve doesn't necessarily get it with his new Bond film. Christopher Nolan almost did a Bond film, but he kind of walked away when he couldn't get final cut. So that is a very big thing in Hollywood, especially in a world where we have a lot of cookie cutter directors like Sean Levy or the Russo brothers who are happy to do everything the studio wants them to. In fact, they're almost mouthpieces for the CEOs running those companies. But not Ryan Coogler. He actually showed that you can operate within this big conglomerate studio system doing Marvel movies and then making these auteur, vision-driven films like Sinners. And Ryan Coogler didn't just knock it out of the park when it comes to all the business aspects or what he actually put on the screen, but I really appreciate how he made film fun for everyone and more accessible. He did this really great 10-minute video with Kodak basically explaining film formats, whether it was 70mm IMAX, 35mm standard, and he's just breaking it down category or format by format. And a lot of cinephiles might not know this, but to the general audience, format does not matter. But when you have a great visionary director like Ryan Coogler breaking it down in simple terms, I think it kind of opens the door for more people in the general public to care about the format they're seeing movies in. I mean, James Cameron's kind of doing the same thing with Avatar Fire and Ash, explaining frame rate, IMAX 3D. But earlier this year, it felt like Ryan Coogler's Kodak video was a serious moment. And you might be thinking, so what? He made a 10-minute video. Well, he didn't have to do that. I mean, in our day and age, it wouldn't be surprising if they just got an influencer to do it or some actor from the movie, because why should the director have to do it? But here he is explaining to me like a college professor how I should be watching movies, how the different formats work, and what might be available around me. So Ryan Coogler is a big winner for me this year. I know he is working on the big franchise stuff like an X-Files reboot or another Black Panther movie, but he is doing great work like Sinners that is breaking through to new audiences. And most importantly, he's opening the avenues to younger filmmakers and more importantly, young Black artists who might not know that someday you can make these kind of deals in Hollywood and really advocate for yourself. So Ryan Coogler, you are a big winner for me in 2025. All right, my third loser or a group of losers for 2025. You know I couldn't make a video without talking about them. It's pretty much all the movie executives that are in Hollywood right now. A pretty historically ghoulish year for you money-sucking vampires. I mean, we have Jeff Bezos and everyone at Amazon MGM who basically forced the Broccoli family to turn over the rights for Bond because Amazon were so difficult to work with. That takes some doing, and now Jeff Bezos wants to put his wife in a Bond film. What have we done? You are a loser, Jeff Bezos. Then we have Bob Iger and the executives at Disney. Oh boy, it was a rough year for you guys. From burying Ironheart and Elio, to more soulless live-action remakes, to shutting down a new Star Wars film, The Hunt for Ben Solo, that sounded like it was going to be amazing. We could have had a Steven Soderbergh or David Fincher directed Ben Solo film, but you guys were worried because, oh, Ben Solo died in the last movie. Oh, you mean the last movie where a famously dead character, Palpatine, also returned? I don't know, man. Bob Iger, you surprise me every year. Also, you shut down Jimmy Kimmel. You made me defend Jimmy Kimmel. That's wild. I never thought I would hear people rallying around Jimmy Kimmel. We also have David Ellison at Paramount, who, as Nathan Fielder pointed out, literally a fascist arm of the government. Also kind of a real-life Kendall Roy. But the final two studio executives I want to talk about, let's start with David Zaslav. Warner Brothers had an absolute banger year at the box office and produced some really, really special films. But none of this had anything to do with you. you, so don't get too excited, David. You've been carving up Warner Brothers for years now in preparation for selling it off like it's nothing, like it's not one of the most historic movie studios that we have. And even if the Netflix deal doesn't go through, you're still gonna make a boatload of money and you can walk away happy, because that's what you've done. You've shelved projects, still made your money. You've let films flop at the box office, still made your money, because that's all you are. You're a money guy. You don't actually care about your work. And then we have maybe the worst movie executive of all, Ted Sarandos from Netflix. I'm struggling to remember another executive that has so many hated and out-of-date comments back to back to back, whether it's his ignorant view of movie theaters that it's an outdated method of seeing movies, and he thinks the theatrical window should be like 1 week, coming from the guy whose shows and films notoriously struggle to make a cultural impact. Remember when he said Barbie and Oppenheimer would have been as big of a deal if they had come out on Netflix at home? One of the dumbest things I have ever heard, considering the whole point of Barbenheimer was bringing everyone back to the theaters after COVID. Ted Sarandos insists that he is saving Hollywood and trying to refine it for the future, but that could not be further from the truth. Look, recently I've seen 2 Netflix films in theaters and both of them were absolutely packed to the brim because people wanted to catch them in theaters. But no, people want to watch James Cameron's new film on the comfort of their toilet at home, right, Ted Sarandos? Make no mistake, if Netflix buys Warner Brother Discovery, it may genuinely be the end of the theater industry or Hollywood as we know it. But look, movie executives as a whole, it is very important to remind ourselves that these people are not artists. They are trashy finance bros who happen to be controlling entertainment companies. And no matter how much they want to act like they are championing the projects that they are putting forward, they're not. They don't care about artistic merit or what format their audiences see things in. They're there to collect a paycheck. Movie executives, you are loser number 3 of 2025. All right, for my third winner of 2025, I have 2 directors who are sharing this spot. It is Chloe Zhao and Rian Johnson. I think they're both winners this year because they have made sensational films after struggling within the big franchise space. I think it's no secret that Chloe Zhao's Eternals did not work. Cost almost $240 million, got 47% on Rotten Tomatoes, was considered the worst MCU movie at that point. Also kind of kicked off the post-Endgame phase of Marvel with a really wet fart. But look at her now, a few years later, and she's on the cusp of being nominated for yet another directing Oscar. And look, Hamnet was an incredibly moving film. I mean, say what you will about the movie. Is it emotionally manipulative? Is it all working toward a Hamlet recreation at the end of the film? Possibly, but it's still an incredibly put together film. Chloe Zhao is a wonderful director and she survived Eternals. Not everyone has made a Marvel flop and come out strong on the other side. Since Thor: Love and Thunder, I don't think Taika Waititi has really been the same. The public has turned on him and his projects have gotten a lot less attention. Chloe Zhao could have gone down the same road, but she pulled up her bootstraps and made Hamnet. Then we have Rian Johnson, who made his 3rd film in the Knives Out franchise and people absolutely loved it. But let's not forget, Star Wars: The Last Jedi could have been the death of his career. Star Wars fans are ruthless, and it is a ruthless franchise where directors get eaten up and spat out. J.J. Abrams hasn't done anything since Episode 9, and Star Wars: The Last Jedi specifically is probably the most divisive Star Wars film. Critics love it, fans hate it, but Rian Johnson moved on so quickly and made 3 insane Knives Out films that people love. I love all 3 Knives Out movies, and I think it's such a fun franchise that I want him to continue with. And he's also kind of killed it on the television front with Poker Face, that I know they're doing a weird reboot with it, but it's had tons of nominations and love and buzz around it. Rian Johnson and Chloe Zhao both went through extreme franchise failures, like possibly making the worst movie in the respective franchises they were in, but stuck to their creative visions, got right back on the horse, and made these fantastic films right away. They're huge winners in my eyes, and I cannot wait to see what each of them do next. But loser number 4, you know I couldn't make a video without talking about her. It's Sydney Sweeney. What a year she has had. I mean, from a eugenics jeans ad to weird fake paparazzi shots with her new boyfriend, awful interview after awful interview, and let's not forget one of the most historic box office flops. Let's start with the jeans ad, because let's be real, who was this for? It's a seductive ad for women's jeans targeted at straight dudes? I really don't understand the creative approach for this spot. And script-wise, did no one sit back and think, talking about about blonde hair and blue eyes and family genes passed on, does this sound a little weird? Does anyone on Sydney Sweeney's team actually have a brain? But I guess who cares, because American Eagle's stock went up like 30% after the ad aired, and that's all that mattered. And as an actress whose best work is probably Euphoria, Sydney Sweeney definitely doesn't care about actually being an artist. And let's talk about the Scooter Braun New York City photos, because they're sitting in a park and it's clearly a fake paparazzi shot. And I feel like the paparazzi photos where she's almost acting like, oh my god, they caught me in a photo, are a perfect representation of how Hollywood treats her. Everyone is setting her up to look like the victim when she's really doing this all to herself. Everyone wants to set her up for the perfect shot and never let her look even a little bit off balance. The biggest example was this really awkward GQ interview she did, where the interviewer basically asks her like, oh, are you against white supremacy? And she doesn't really answer. What do you think about Trump tweeting about you? And it's just so awkward because the interviewer is clearly not actually wanting to press her on any of these matters. Finally, the entire Christie debacle. I had a chance to see this movie at TIFF, but honestly, I find Sydney Sweeney as an actress insufferable. And there were movies I wanted to see instead, so I did not use one of my 10 tickets to see it. Sydney Sweeney plays real-life boxer Christy Martin. The film grossed a depressing $1.3 million domestically in its opening weekend, which Forbes says is an average of $643 per theater, putting it in the bottom 10 ever for wide-released films. And you know what? It was entirely her fault. Her PR methods are being as controversial and naive as possible, catering to the right and all of these delusional Republicans, but she fails to realize these people don't go to the movies. They're not going to support a film that is about a queer woman, and they don't support women's sports. Why would they go to a biopic about a female boxer? And that's another thing. Sydney Sweeney really never championed the story as a queer story, as a female athlete story. She kept her connection to the story as broad as possible and even let the studio cut out half of Katie O'Brien's scenes. There's nothing for the audience to connect to when you describe the film as broad as possible, and you're not reaching out to groups of people who want to see these kinds of stories on the big screen. Sydney Sweeney's 2025 PR campaign is one of the best examples of how you should not act in media. She is no doubt loser number 4 for me this year. But next up, my 4th winner of the year is actually Apple TV. Look, I think Apple TV haven't really cracked the cinematic space yet. Like, they are doing some interesting stuff. Obviously, Killers of the Flower Moon was phenomenal, but they did have huge duds like Argyle. Maybe in the future we'll see more successful Apple films, but on the TV side of things, they're kind of revolutionizing the game. When you open the Apple TV app, they are kind of building a successful library of TV shows. Shrinking, Ted Lasso, Severance, Pluribus, The Studio, Slow Horses, The Morning Show. These are all incredibly recognizable shows with recognizable stars. They're building an impressive library that makes you want to keep paying for the app because there's so much to catch up on. And I actually think them having a smaller library, unlike Netflix, works to their advantage, because every time you open the app, you're not getting lost in 1,000 movies and TV shows. I also think they're making incredible television, like artistic driven TV shows. The biggest one, of course, being Severance, a cultural phenomenon that will no doubt go down in history. And yes, I know it takes like 3 years between the seasons of Severance, but if you're feeling impatient and wanting a new show to watch right away, Slow Horses has made like 7 seasons in 4 years or something ridiculous like that. I don't know how they're doing it, but they are just cranking out season after season, and it's incredibly impressive, especially in the 2025 context where shows like Stranger Things take 10 years for 5 seasons. It really feels like Apple TV is only getting started, and they're attracting more and more big names like Vince Gilligan, who's now doing Pluribus. So Apple TV 2025 was very good for you, and you're a big winner in my books. But okay, it's time for our biggest and final loser of 2025. I've reserved this spot for a special group of people that have plagued society over the last year and a bit. It is generative AI users and pushers. I've seen some really pathetic arguments in TikToks or Reddit threads where people are like, oh, AI makes art more accessible. No, it doesn't. You're not making art. Your computer isn't making art either. It's actually bringing the bar down for everyone and making everyone kind of sit on the same plane of existence of slop. And you know what? Not everyone should be good at stuff. We all have things we are good at, and maybe art just isn't for you. It's this really weird argument where it's like, wow, AI is making anything possible, but it's really not. This stuff is always noticeable. It always looks looks bad. It's never going to be on the same level as human art. And even if it was impossible to tell, as soon as you briefly mention that there is AI involved, it's immediately labeled as AI art or something that involves AI. It happened during the Oscars with The Brutalist, a film that, yes, is an incredible artistic vision, but now people see it as a movie that used AI. The use of AI immediately brings you down a level, and it's where you deserve to be. There's nothing original about the art you are making with ChatGPT or Sora. You're just plagiarizing everything. And generative AI isn't just bad for the actual environment of artists, but it's bad for our world's environment as well. There's cities in the United States whose water population is dropping, electricity surges. Some data centers use as much electricity as entire countries. The United Nations Environmental Program says globally, AI-related infrastructure may soon consume 6 times more water than Denmark. That is a problem when a quarter of humanity already lacks access to clean water and sanitation. And not to be a doom and gloom kind of guy, but for those that think AI is going to be a problem down the road, it's already here. We've had 2 years of Coca-Cola commercials using generative AI, a new McDonald's commercial using generative AI, but it's not all negative because I do think there is a real pushback from the general public. McDonald's Netherlands, of course, the ones that made that generative AI ad, actually took it down after 48 hours because they got torn apart so badly. So I do kind of see a future where people get bored of generative AI and they don't want it in their entertainment. It really is just a toy. Like, so what? You can make Saving Private Ryan and Family Guy animation. There's nothing original about anything you are doing. You are simply stealing from other ideas and blending things. There's never going to be a good argument for generative AI. It is a plague on our society. So generative AI users and pushers, you are the biggest loser of 2025. And now for the biggest winner of 2025, I am choosing someone that's kind of redefining what it means to be a superstar or a movie star in the new era of Hollywood, Timothée Chalamet. Timothée Chalamet is honestly what it would be like if Troy Bolton became an Oscar-nominated actor. He's a sporty, nerdy jock from New York City that happens to be one of our greatest actors of all time. Last year and earlier this year, Timmy happened to go on one of the greatest Oscar campaigns, going on sports TV shows, super random podcasts, and he even featured on SNL not just as the host, but as the musical performer, which is incredibly historic and rare. And this year he went deep into his Dune creative space, even shaving his head for that role. And he comes out on the other end ready for a Marty Supreme promotional campaign by self-financing his buzz cut reveal video. From the Marty Supreme Zoom call to that initial video, as well as the Soulja Boy dance in Brazil, Timothée Chalamet is doing some crazy promotional work for A24 right now, including getting some of the biggest stars and athletes to wear the Marty Supreme merch. I mean, just a couple days ago, he featured on SD Kid's track as Timmy Tim, making his long-awaited return to the rap game, and it made a huge splash on the internet. Even more people want to see Marty Supreme now. It feels like Timothée Chalamet is the first chronically online movie star that we've had, and he really does hit all 4 sectors of the market perfectly. Young guys love him because he's hip and down with the rap community. Young girls love him because he's handsome and dating a Kardashian. Moms love him because he himself is a mama's boy, and I think dads are starting to like him because he's been on all of the football talk shows that they watch on the weekend. And look, as for his ego, I know some people don't love it and they think he's getting a little bit too big for his boots. I think it's more that he's coming off of the rush of Marty Supreme and takes a little bit of each role that he's done. He's kind of a young Bob Dylan now in many ways, but he's also moving into this extremely ambitious, almost athlete-like mentality. I loved his SAG speech last year and the fact that he named so many great athletes, but also incredible performers like Viola Davis or Daniel Day-Lewis. It shows that he's really not here for the fame, but he wants to be a great artist, and he treats it so competitively and authentic. And his recent interviews where he's saying, look, over the last 7 or 8 years, I've given top performances, and I think Marty Supreme is my best one. Cocky, yes, of course. There's no way that a woman or a young actress could come out and say things like this. That is unfortunately still the world we are living in. I mean, Rachel Zegler said she wasn't invited to the Oscars, and everyone was like, oh my God, know your place. Her movie was nominated. But look, as for Timothée Chalamet. I think he's on one of the greatest PR runs right now. Like, Sydney Sweeney, take notes. This is how it's supposed to be done. And the fact of the matter is, it is working. Dune Part 2 made a bunch of money. A Complete Unknown was successful. And Marty Supreme has had some of the best pre-sales for an A24 film ever. So Timothée Chalamet is hands down the biggest winner of 2025 for me. So there you have it. Those are my 2025 winners and losers for movies and TV. How do you think I did? Who would you add? Who would you take away from the list? We live in a really weird time where there's pretty much generational news every single week, so I am sure that I've missed a few things. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell. I have a few videos that are going to come out over the next month or two. We'll have my top 5 favorite movies of 2025. I'll have Oscar predictions, as well as my most anticipated movies of 2026. Also, don't forget to check out the weekly podcast Watcher of All Things, where coincidentally episode number 100 coming out soon will be about Marty Supreme. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.
When I think heaven knows what, I think Schwa! Robert Pattinson, Schwa! When I think Uncut Gems, Schwa!